Hey guys, what's going on? It's the NRL Fantasy Fanatic coming at you round number 9 from round number 8. How you all doing? Hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button down below. Super appreciate the support. Loving all the comments still coming in. We're round number 9. This is probably one of the most pinnacle and interesting times of the season. It's the time of that year when some of the coaches out there start to drop off due to the team not doing so well. Or maybe they've got multiple teams and team B, C, or D didn't work out and they've just got their one team that's absolutely killing it, which is all good. We're starting to look at Origin, which is round 13. There's 8 teams playing. Having a look at the teams that are playing, they're predominantly not the teams that most people would elect to have players from. So like Cowboys, Titans, you could say the Panthers are up there with players that you'd have, like the Clearys, Luais, etc. However, Origin players will be out. There's the Raiders, Warriors, etc., etc. And I'm sure you've all done your homework, and I've evaluated what players I'd like to grab in order to fill that gap. But for me, when I start to look at Origin cover and ensuring I've got an additional 2 or 3 more players than the other coaches out there, I have to evaluate, is it beneficial for my team to do that in the long run? Like, is the short-term gain of having that one extra round worth it for me? And in a lot of cases, the answer is no, unless the player you're bringing in provides that gun status already that you might not consider trading out. And so last week, we were talking about bringing in Tomalolo, who's been super consistent. He's playing at lock. He's starting. He's getting 50, 60 minutes. He's having good contributions. The base stats are about 40, and anything else is upside, which is what we want to see out of Tomalolo. And we got a good result this week with a 55, which is a really, really good score in fantasy these days if you're looking for consistency. Hasn't got across to score a try yet this season, but he may be due sometime this year, so we may even see further upside further down the year. So Tomalolo is definitely a player that I'd look to bring in. One thing I will say is that I originally traded out Josh Curran last week, and I had Dave Fifita in my squad. However, what happened, and I think this is a lesson for all coaches out there, is that he ended up getting traded. He ended up getting substituted to the bench by Justin Holbrook in the 1 hour preview before the game team list update. And for me, given that he was given that he played at center last in the prior week and now he's being subbed off, I just didn't like the idea of having one of my marquee gun players or players that I'm paying significant dollars to be doing that, because it's not going to end well for you if they're playing musical chairs. And Fifita, as we know, needs more minutes in order to score more points on the board. So I quickly did that trade out to Tomalolo. Instead of Curran, it worked out brilliantly. The trade out was with Luke, who ended up scoring his lowest score of 3. We expect that. He's coming off the bench for Appy in the hooker role. He will cover for Origin if Appy plays in Origin. We'll have to see how that plays out. Maybe Damien Cook will get the call out. Not really sure yet at this stage. But overall, our team did really well. We had a few concerns with injuries. Jack Bird was out last minute, so I got Koula's score, which is all good. There are a few other players that I've already traded out this week, which my considerations were Brodie Jones and Lachlan Ilias. Ilias, for me, was a bit of a no-brainer, purely because if you're playing against 12 men for 70 minutes, which is what they did against the Manly game, you expect your half to absolutely explode with points and to exploit the other team with run meters, setting up tries, and he's just overall not involved with it. And yes, his break-even this week is 19, and he'll most likely outscore his break-even, I have no doubt. But I really wanted to bring in another gun into my side 1 week earlier than I was originally planning and plotting. So my consideration was Josh Papali'i, and that's purely because my team is a bit light in the mid to edge, and to have someone who can cover both spots, in case one of those guys gets injured, last minute pulled out, warm-up training injury, whatever, it's good coverage for my squad, because as you can see on the bench, there's a lot of... I've got a bit of one of each, I've got a center wing fullback, I've got a half, a hooker, a mid, etc. So I was really light in that department, and being light in that department's not always a good idea, because as you all know, they're probably the highest base stat scorers, the second rollers and your locks that are consistently making the tackles in the middle. But look, if we're considering trades, and I know this is a pinnacle week because we're only 5 weeks out from round 13, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, rep week, origin week, would you consider bringing in a player over like a mediocre mid-tier player for a gun? You know, let's compare. Let's compare someone who a lot of people are moving in on. Drinkwater, Scotty Drinkwater, who's been scoring well. He's scored a try. He's scored in his last 4 games. He's scored 3 tries across those games, and he's doing absolutely phenomenal. However, for me, his base stats indicate that he's a 30-40 point scorer, and if I compare that to a Cleary who's 70 points, now if I bring in a Drinkwater for Cleary, because he's going to play that 1 extra game, just a consideration, we wouldn't actually do that, but let's say the point difference is if I think consistently Drinkwater will score 40, and I think Cleary will definitely score 60 each week in out, that's a point difference of 20 points. So if I take the next 5 weeks, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, is that Cleary will score the points difference across the 4 weeks of 20 points. So 20 times 4, that gets me 80 points. However, on the 5th round, Cleary doesn't play because he'll be playing Origin. Drinkwater will. He will score, if I believe he'll still score the 40 points that he would be good for. We've already determined that the point difference between the first 4 rounds was 80 points. If Drinkwater only scores 40 in that 5th round, that brings me a differential of 40 points in favour of holding a Cleary over someone who's mediocre and just going to play that 1 extra round. And it's a bit finicky these days with fantasy. It's very different to the the changes that we saw 2-3 years ago when we used to have 25 players across our squad fulfilling all the different positions and not just having this emergency bench dump. Because you could have better origin cover. You could have players scattered across all teams to cover all positions and to naturally pick up points for you in that bye round. But it's just making too many trades in order to ensure that you're just going to get 1 round of benefit isn't worth it in that quick scenario that I gave you, because when round 17 comes around, let's say if you actually manage to play 10 of your players in the bye round, when round 17 comes over, you'll have to make just as many trades in order to reverse all the damaging trades you made to play another 10 players around 17, and it's just never worth it. You're always better having the players that are going to be scoring across the season better than having the ones that are going to pick up that 1 extra round because of the buys. If you suspected your player got injured, it's a little bit different. Josh Curran, if I didn't think he was going to come back in the next 2 weeks, which is still a little bit indefinite at the moment, we're not really sure. We've heard it's 2 to 6 weeks from the 2-week mark ago before, same as Payne Haas. I could easily trade out these players. They're taking a lot of my salary cap up. I just think that they'll be back very shortly and they'll be consistent for me. So that's why I want to hold those players. But I'm totally against making sporadic trades just for the sake of Origin. In the older format, I'd argue that you'd have a case in point. If the teams that were playing in 13 had more predominant guns that didn't have Origin responsibilities, then I'd definitely, give you the thumbs up and say, you know what, that's actually not a bad idea. But the reality is, with only 21 players and most of us out there already having 1 or 2 or 3 players missing each week through injury or not being named or whatever else, is case in point for me just not to execute on just making dramatic changes to my team. So I'm pretty happy with how my team went. We ranked 6,000th for the round or thereabouts, 6th to 7,000th. We jumped up quite a few spots. I'm hoping to emulate that again. Cleary's been absolutely killing it for us. Definitely worth pumping in a gun and trading out your mid-tiers when you can. Now, there'd still be a lot of people who are kind of shrugging, saying, Rick, you've got on your emergency Wishart and Luke, who aren't going to be scoring well across the year. They're not going to be cashies. To that I say, cashies, anyone under 400 grand who's going to consistently play and make you another 100 to 200 grand at this time of the year, very far and in between to find players at the moment. Please let me know down in the comments below if you disagree and you have guns on the tip of your tongue. Sorry, cash cows on the tip of your tongue that you think are going to be making that 100 to 200 grand that's going to be worth making 2 trades. For me, I just looked at it as trading out Wishart, getting that basement absolute lowest price at 220. He can't go any lower. Someone who will probably play during the Origin rounds as well for his squad if, you know, Cameron Munster's out, so he may be able to fill in and score a few more points for me that he wouldn't otherwise during normal NRL rounds. But traded them out because I couldn't see any other low tier, low costing players that had that much more upside. So I think for me a little bit dramatic with my trades, you know. Obviously, if I'm trading out to basement prices and bringing in absolute guns, I'm trying to make up the difference in my rank right now because I'm that far behind. My goal is to, by the end of the year, jump back into the top 10,000. I know it's not the best of goals. It's definitely a little bit lower than where we suspect ourselves to be usually throughout the various years we've done these videos, but you know, we've had a couple of things not go our way, couple of players that kind of slipped on the radar that just didn't work for us, and vice versa, where players did work for other squads. So that's kind of the position I'm in. I know there are going to be quite a few people saying, look, Randall's already maxed out. I saw that commonly asked in some of the other Facebook groups. Reality is he's scoring 50, he's averaging 47. I can't justify trading out a player like that at this moment if he's just going to be scoring 50s, because 50s are pretty difficult to get across the board these days. Even some of your guns, as you can see, can struggle week to week to get those types of scores. And if they can get flogged 50 to 2, and he can still score 50 points just because he's a tackling machine in the middle, playing big minutes, happy to hold him there. Interested to hear what your takes are, guys. If you're doing anything random with your teams, if you have any questions, let me know down below. Best of luck this week. Hopefully you kill it. And I'll be interested to see how the Penrith Panthers go against my mighty Eels. Hopefully we don't get absolutely put into place by the squad, and maybe we can have a bit of an upset. We'll see how that goes out. Best luck this week, guys. Take it easy. Whoosh.